If you've ever clicked on a story because you sensed something was off before it even started, you're in the right place. What you're about to hear begins at the exact moment I realized a single signature could quietly ruin a lot of lives. I was already holding the contract when I noticed it. Again, one page missing. The verification page. The one that never just disappears by accident. I turned the paper toward her, kept my voice steady, said the words I'd already said too many times. This partner doesn't clear. She didn't look at the page, didn't ask which part, didn't ask why. The pen in her hand tapped once, like she was bored. Then the laugh came, short, sharp, almost playful. Jealousy makes people imagine problems, she said, still not meeting my eyes. My mom isn't going to believe this. The pen moved, no pause, no hesitation, just ink on paper. I stood there, stupidly still. Didn't grab the folder, didn't raise my voice, didn't do anything dramatic that would have made it feel like my decision too. The printer hummed behind me. Warm paper slid into the tray. The smell of toner hung in the air, sharp and bitter. She closed the folder and stood up. Already done with me. I watched her walk out, heels clicking, contract tucked under her arm like it was a trophy. I stayed where I was for a second too long, holding the copy that still felt warm in my hands. That was the moment it hit me. Not fear, not anger. Clarity. Stopping her now would have meant owning the mess. Letting it move forward meant something else entirely. My name is Fiona, 34 years old. I folded the contract, slid it into my bag, walked out without saying another word. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at RevengeAITA. Names, events, and situations are dramatized for storytelling purposes. Each story carries its own message and does not repeat the lessons of any other. I didn't know it yet, but that walk down the hallway was the last quiet moment I'd have for a while. Everything after that moved fast, too fast to stop. I kept replaying it in my head, like I was checking my own math. Not to feel brave, just to make sure I wasn't exaggerating. The first warning had been gentle, almost apologetic. I slid a note across her desk and pointed at the margin, a soft heads up. Something about mismatched registration numbers. She waved it off without reading past the first line. The second time, I brought data, screenshots, timestamps. I laid them out side by side so she wouldn't have to scroll. Her chair leaned back, arms crossed. The smile stayed. Third time. I didn't bother easing in. I pulled the Federal Registry entry and turned my laptop so everyone could see the red flag. She squinted, then shrugged. Those lists are always outdated. The fourth time almost didn't happen. I sat at my desk with the draft open, staring at the cursor. My finger hovered over send. I thought about my rent, thought about how easy it would be to let someone else notice. Then I hit send anyway. She never replied. The fifth time was the meeting. Conference room, glass walls. Too many people pretending not to listen. I spoke up anyway. My voice didn't shake. That part surprised me. This partner is restricted, I said. It's not a gray area. Her eyes flicked up. One roll, slow, deliberate. The pen in her hand clicked. Once, twice, loud enough to cut through the room. We've heard this already. A short laugh came from the other end of the table, not even trying to hide it. The pen clicked again, faster now, like a countdown. I stood there, suddenly aware of how long I'd been in the same role, how replaceable caution sounds when money is involved. That was the moment it shifted. Not when she ignored me, when everyone else did too. Quick aside, be honest with me for a second. There's a point where survival starts whispering louder than integrity. You feel it before you admit it. The meeting moved on without me. Different topic. Different voice leading it. I sat down slowly, the pen still clicking in my ears, and understood something I hadn't wanted to name yet. Speaking up wasn't protection anymore. It was a liability. And once that realization settled in, I started thinking less about stopping the deal and more about what would happen if I didn't. I went back to the emails that night. Not because I wanted to, because I couldn't shake the tone of them. Too friendly. That was the first thing. Compliments stacked on compliments. Visionary leadership, rare decisiveness. Your instincts are spot on. The kind of language people use when they're trying to keep you moving so you don't stop and check the ground. Every message ended the same way. A soft push. A deadline that wasn't really a deadline, but acted like one. We'd love to move quickly. Timing matters here. Let's not lose momentum. One line sat in the middle of the thread like it had been waiting for me. Let's start with a small test transfer. I stared at it longer than I should have. The coffee on my desk had gone cold. I took a sip anyway and regretted it immediately. A test transfer isn't a test. It's a trigger. Money moves once, and suddenly compliance isn't theoretical anymore. Systems light up, flags get raised. People who weren't watching before start paying attention. I pulled up the calendar, scrolled. There it was. Scheduled. Already approved. My name wasn't on it. I leaned back and closed my eyes for a second. Thought about the meeting, thought about the pen clicking. Thought about how fast she'd signed, like speed itself was proof of confidence. The next email came in while I was still staring at the screen. Excited to get started. This partnership is going to change everything. I didn't respond, didn't forward it, didn't flag it. I just saved a copy. Quick pause here. You know that feeling when something sounds too eager to be clean? When it's all forward motion and no room for questions, I swear, it hits the body before the brain catches up. I checked the transfer details one more time. Amount small enough not to scare anyone, just enough to open a door. I closed the laptop instead of sending another warning. The screen went dark. The room stayed quiet. At that point, it wasn't about convincing anyone anymore. The deal was already breathing on its own. All that was left was what happens once the money starts moving. She caught up to me in the hallway before I reached the elevators, not angry, not rushed. That was the part that threw me. Her heels echoed behind us, sharp and steady, like she'd already decided how this conversation would end. Let's be clear, she said, sliding into step beside me. No greeting, no warm-up. I know you're nervous. I kept walking, didn't slow down, didn't look at her. This deal is moving, she continued. And I need you to stop circling it like you're waiting for permission to panic. I stopped then, turned just enough so she could see my face, not defensive, not apologetic. It's not nerves, I told her. It's exposure. She didn't deny it. That's the part people miss when they hear this later. She didn't pretend it was clean. She didn't argue the registry or the transfer. She just leaned closer, voice dropping half a notch. Don't slow this down. The words landed heavier than a threat. They weren't loud. They didn't need to be for half a second. I felt it rise in my chest. Everything I wanted to unload. Every warning, every screenshot. Every meeting where I'd been talked over. My mouth opened. Then I saw it. The calculation. Not fear, not ignorance. Just a clean line between what helped her and what didn't. I closed my mouth, nodded once. She watched me for a beat, checking for resistance. When it didn't come, she stepped past me like the conversation had already expired. Her heels moved away, the sound stretching down the corridor until it disappeared around the corner. Quick pause here. There's a moment where you realize silence isn't agreement, it's a boundary. And crossing it would make you responsible for whatever comes next. I stood there longer than I should have. Long enough for the echo to fade. Long enough for the anger to cool into something clearer. The thought didn't hit me right away. It came later, in the quiet, when there was no one left to posture for. If I blocked it now, I wouldn't be stopping a bad decision. I'd be taking ownership of it. And once I saw that, walking away stopped feeling like weakness and started feeling like the last move that was still mine. I didn't sleep much that night, not from panic, from repetition. My brain kept lining things up the same way my hands would the next morning. Dates first, then times, then versions. I pulled every email thread into one folder, labeled them cleanly, not dramatic names, just facts, the original outreach, the follow-ups, the compliments that escalated into pressure. I saved each attachment twice, once as received, once as opened. I noted who was copied and who was conspicuously missing. The system log came next, approval chains, override timestamps. I watched the sequence play out again on my screen, calm and indifferent. The transfer sat there, hued, small amount, small enough to slide under anyone's radar who didn't know what it meant. The laptop fan kicked up, a thin whining sound that always shows up when I push it too hard. I rested my finger on the trackpad, right over the flag option. One click would stop it. One click would freeze the process and send alerts straight up the chain. One click would put my name right in the center of it. My phone buzzed. A message preview lit up the screen. We're all aligned, right? No greeting, no signature, just expectation. I didn't answer. I stared at the flag icon long enough to feel ridiculous, like it was daring me to prove something. I knew exactly how this would be framed later if I touched it. Emotional, obstructive, difficult. I removed my hand. Quick aside. There's a moment when choosing nothing feels heavier than choosing wrong. It doesn't feel brave. It feels quiet and sharp, like stepping back from something that's already rolling. I saved the final screenshot, time-stamped it, closed the folder. The fan kept whining as I shut the laptop. The sound cut off abruptly, leaving the room too still. The transfer stayed queued. I stood up without ceremony, grabbed my bag, turned off the light. By the time I left the building, it wasn't a hypothetical anymore. The deal didn't need my voice to move forward. It had momentum now. All I'd done was stop standing in its way. The call came mid-morning. Not from an extension I recognized. Not rushed either. Compliance needs to come downstairs. That was it. No introduction, no tone to read into, just instruction. I stood up without grabbing my bag. Didn't shut my screen down. Walked past desks where people were still typing, still joking, still pretending the day was normal. My phone started vibrating before I reached the elevator. I didn't check it. Security was waiting in the lobby. 2 of them I knew, 1 I didn't. He didn't smile. The badge clipped to his belt caught the light as he shifted, metal tapping softly when he moved. Follow us. The doors slid open. The first unfamiliar badge came into view, then another. Dark suits, neutral faces, shoes too clean for the building. They didn't ask for me by title. They already knew. I'm compliance. I offered, more habit than fear. A woman stepped forward, calm, direct. Her eyes flicked to my badge, then past me, already scanning the floor. We'll need access to the partnership records. No accusation, no warmth, just a request that wasn't optional. I nodded, led them toward the elevators without asking for authorization. No one stopped us. That part landed heavier than it should have. As the doors closed, my phone buzzed again. And again. The sound was muffled against my leg, but I could feel the panic in the frequency. Messages stacking, names flashing, people finally noticing something was wrong. Quick pause here. At that point, there's nothing clever left to say. No version where explaining helps. You either cooperate, or you make yourself part of the story. We reached my floor, heads turned, conversations cut off mid-sentence. Someone whispered my name like it might answer back. I logged in, stepped aside, let them take the chair closest to the screen. They worked efficiently, no commentary, no reaction, just quiet clicks and notes being made. Behind me, phones kept buzzing. Somewhere else in the building, voices were rising. Blame was already looking for a direction. I stayed where I was, hands visible, access open, waiting for the moment someone decided where the finger would land first. The call came through while I was still sitting at my desk. The agents a few steps behind me, talking quietly to each other like I wasn't there. The screen lit up with a name I didn't have saved, but I already knew who it was. I answered. The voice hit hard and fast, no greeting, no checking if I was alone. What did you do? The words weren't shouted. That's what caught me off guard. They were sharp, controlled, like someone gripping the edge of a table instead of flipping it. I didn't do anything, I said. Kept my tone flat. I raised concerns, multiple times. A breath on the other end, short, tight. My daughter says you've been undermining her since day 1. I let that sit for a second, not to be dramatic, to make sure I didn't fill the space with defense. I flagged a restricted partner. I documented the warnings. I didn't approve the transfer. Silence, I could picture it then. The pause where anger starts looking for somewhere else to land and doesn't find it. She told me you were being difficult. She signed anyway. Another pause. Longer this time. She said compliance cleared it. No, I said, compliance didn't clear anything. The agents behind me stopped typing. One of them glanced up, then went back to the screen. I kept going. Dates, times, versions, who was copied, who wasn't. No commentary, no edge, just the record. You can hear it when power realizes it can't bully its way out. The breathing changes. The questions stop sounding like accusations and start sounding like calculations. The line went quiet, not disconnected, just held. When she spoke again, her voice was lower, slower. I need copies of everything. They're already being reviewed. Another stretch of silence. Then a small sound, like the phone shifting in her hand. The call ended without goodbye. The dial tone buzzed in my ear longer than it should have. I didn't hang up right away. Behind me, the agents kept working. Screens flickered, files opened and closed. Whatever that call was supposed to be, it wasn't protection, it was the first crack. And once that happened, there was no way for family loyalty to outrun the paper trail anymore. The meeting was called fast. Too fast to prepare stories, not fast enough to stop the damage. She was already talking when I walked in, standing, hands moving, words stacking on top of each other like speed could outrun facts. "This is being blown out of proportion," she said, pacing a half step, then another. "We've done deals like this before. Compliance flagged it late, that's all. Late? Not wrong, just late." Someone cleared their throat near the end of the table. A chair scraped back an inch, then stopped. Nobody told her to slow down. Nobody told her to stop either. I took my seat and set my folder down. "Didn't open it yet. The transfer amount was minimal," she continued. "Barely more than an administrative test. No intent to." I opened the folder. The sound was soft, but it landed, paper sliding. A pause that didn't belong to her. I laid the documents out in order, not all at once, one at a time. Registry screenshot, time-stamped warning, email thread, approval log. The override entry that shouldn't have existed. She kept talking for a few seconds longer, then noticed no one was looking at her anymore. That's not her voice cut off when she leaned forward and saw the dates lined up. Perfect, ugly, unforgiving. I didn't narrate, didn't explain, just pointed. Then slid the next page over. Someone on the other side of the table inhaled sharply. Another chair moved back, this time all the way. Funny how rules matter again once consequences show up. She tried once more, slower now. "Careful. You're making it sound intentional. It was signed after the warning," I said. That was all. No one interrupted me, not once. Not when I listed the sequence. Not when I stopped and let the silence do its job. Her voice didn't come back. The room shifted around that absence. Decisions forming without asking her permission anymore. Authority draining in real time. When it was over, the folder stayed open in front of me. No one asked me to close it. That's what accountability looked like in practice. Not loud, not dramatic. Just no way out. It didn't happen the way people imagine consequences happen. No raised voices, no escorted exits, no slammed doors. The contract was voided in a sentence read aloud without emphasis. Someone slid the document across the table. Already marked, already done. The signature at the bottom was still there. It just didn't matter anymore. Her authority went next, not announced, not debated. Just removed from the list of approvals. The shared drive updated while we were still sitting there. Access revoked, permissions stripped. Quiet clicks replacing what used to feel untouchable. She stood near the end of the table, arms crossed so tight it looked like she was holding herself together. When the decision landed, her jaw flexed once. That was it. No one asked her to speak. A legal advisor cleared his throat and mentioned next steps. Temporary reassignment, ongoing review. Language clean enough to sound merciful. Nothing about intent, nothing about family. She didn't look at me, not once. Not when the contract was taken, not when the authority disappeared. Her eyes stayed fixed somewhere past my shoulder, like I wasn't worth the effort anymore. I returned the favor. Someone opened a drawer near the wall. The signature stamp went in. The drawer closed. The lock turned. The sound was dull, final. Quick aside. Is losing power worse than losing your job? I couldn't tell from where I was sitting. All I knew was the room felt lighter without it pressing down. The meeting ended without ceremony. Chairs slid back. People checked their phones again. Normality rushed in too fast, like it always does. I gathered my folder, slid the last document inside. No one stopped me. No one thanked me either. As I walked out, I heard her voice for the first time since the decision. Make sure this doesn't happen again. It wasn't aimed at me. It didn't need to be. I kept walking, didn't turn around, didn't slow down. By the time I reached my desk, the system had already updated. My access was still there. Hers wasn't. Whatever I'd won, it didn't look like relief. It looked like space. And space, I was starting to realize, comes with its own weight. They moved me the following week, not with an announcement, not with applause. A calendar invite, a short conversation, different reporting line, more authority, less noise. The new role came with access I didn't have before. Direct channels, fewer meetings where people talked in circles. No one framed it as a reward. No one framed it as damage control either. It was positioned as necessary. I preferred that. There was no apology. Not from her, not from her mother, not from anyone who'd watched it happen and stayed quiet. I didn't expect one. Apologies don't fix systems. They just make people feel lighter for a minute. Late one night, I stayed after most of the floor had emptied. The lights hummed overhead, steady and indifferent. I sat there with the screen dimmed, not working. Just replaying the moment in the hallway when I nodded instead of arguing. I could have blocked it. I still know that. One click, one escalation, one email sent to the right person at the right time. I also know what would have happened next. My name attached to the mess. My judgment questioned. My motives picked apart until the facts didn't matter anymore. Stepping aside didn't feel clean. It didn't feel brave. It felt cold and precise and final. Someone passed my desk and paused. A junior analyst I barely knew. She glanced at the door to my new office, then back at me. "I'm glad you're here," she said quietly. Not gratitude, relief. That landed heavier than any title. Here's the lesson I'm left with, and it isn't pretty. Doing the right thing doesn't always mean stopping someone. Sometimes it means refusing to carry their decision for them. Sometimes integrity looks like documentation and restraint instead of confrontation. I didn't stop it. I stepped aside, and I live with that choice every day, not as a victory, as ownership.